5 Gen Z male stars who said, "I'm gay" before age 25 and why it matters. There's a reason older LGBTQ+ people watch Gen Z come out and feel both joy and grief. Joy because these kids get to live at 20 what took others until 40. Grief because it highlights what was stolen from previous generations. Years of living honestly, of dating openly, of not performing straightness to survive. 2025 was the year 5 Gen Z stars came out before 25, and the ease with which they did it, the casualness, the lack of dramatic announcement videos, the shrugging, "yeah, obviously," felt revolutionary to anyone who remembers when coming out meant risking everything. These aren't just coming out stories, they're generational markers, proof that something fundamental has shifted about who gets to be themselves and when. This is why their visibility changes the timeline for everyone watching.
Luca Henny, the Swiss Eurovision star who came out at 21 and Europe barely blinked. Luca Henny won Deutschland sucht den Superstar, German Idol at 16, represented Switzerland at Eurovision at 25, built a solid European music career. But what makes him significant for this conversation? He came out as bisexual at 21 during a Swiss television interview with the same energy people use to mention their favorite food. "Yeah, I'm bi, it's not a big deal." And Europe largely agreed. The contrast with older generations is stark. When George Michael came out in 1998, it was front-page news and derailed his career. When Ricky Martin came out in 2010, it required a carefully written statement and strategic PR. When Henny came out in 2017, though it went largely unnoticed until 2020, he mentioned it on a talk show between discussing his album and his workout routine. The host nodded and moved to the next question. That casualness, treating sexuality as one detail among many rather than the detail that defines you, is pure Gen Z energy. What Henny represents, the European Gen Z experience where coming out is increasingly non-news. He didn't make a statement, didn't post a long Instagram caption, just mentioned it in conversation and continued with his career. His fans didn't abandon him. His label didn't drop him. His Eurovision chances weren't affected. He competed 2 years after coming out. The infrastructure of homophobia that older generations faced, the assumption that being openly queer would end your career, largely didn't apply. But Henny himself is thoughtful about his privilege. In a 2024 interview, he acknowledges, "I came out in Switzerland in 2017, in an industry that was already relatively accepting. That's not the same as coming out in Eastern Europe or in hip-hop or in football. My ease coming out doesn't mean everyone's experience is easy. It means I had privileges, geography, timing, industry, that others don't." That awareness distinguishes Gen Z from previous generations. Millennials came out and said, "It gets better." Gen Z comes out and says, "It got better for some of us in some places, but the work isn't done." The Eurovision context is particularly notable. Eurovision has historically been beloved by LGBTQ+ audiences, but careful about openly LGBTQ+ performers. Henny competing in 2019 as an openly bi performer, representing conservative Switzerland, and the controversy being zero. That signals something shifting. Eurovision 2025 featured multiple openly LGBTQ+ performers from various countries, and none of them made it their entire narrative. They were just performers who happened to be queer. That normalization is Gen Z's gift to the next generation. What Luca Henny changed. He proved that in some contexts, for some people, coming out can be genuinely no big deal. Not performatively casual, but actually casual. He didn't need a coming out video or statement because his sexuality wasn't a crisis or revelation. It was just a fact. That experience, coming out young, easily, and facing minimal consequences, would have been impossible 20 years ago. That it's possible now, for some Gen Z people in some contexts, shows how far progress has come. But Henny's awareness that his ease isn't universal shows how far it still needs to go. The goal isn't making coming out easy for privileged Europeans in accepting industries. It's making it possible for everyone, everywhere. Gen Z knows the difference. Z knows Kit Connor, the Heartstopper star, who came out because the internet wouldn't leave him alone. Kit Connor's coming out story is messy in ways that reveal everything wrong about how the internet treats young queer people. Connor, 21, plays Nick Nelson in Netflix's Heartstopper, a character navigating bisexuality in a tender, honest way that made millions of viewers feel seen. But Connor himself hadn't publicly labeled his sexuality, and the internet decided that was a problem. Fans, supposedly supportive progressive fans, started questioning whether Connor was queer enough to play the role. Whether a presumably straight actor playing gay was representation or appropriation. October 2022, after months of harassment and speculation, Connor tweets, "Back for a minute, I'm bi. Congrats for forcing an 18-year-old to out himself. I think some of you missed the point of the show. Bye." The tweet breaks hearts across the Heartstopper fandom because it exposes the truth. Forced outing isn't better just because it's done by LGBTQ plus people to LGBTQ plus people. Connor was 18, still a teenager, and the internet's need to know forced him to share something he wasn't ready to share. But by 2025, Connor has reclaimed his narrative. At 21, doing press for Heartstopper Season 3, he's more open but also more boundaried. He'll discuss being bi. He won't discuss his dating life. He'll talk about representation. He won't perform his queerness to prove he's queer enough. In one interview that goes viral, he says, "I'm bi. That's a fact. Who I'm dating? How I express that? What my relationships look like? That's private. Being openly queer doesn't mean I owe you every detail. Gen Z needs to learn that representation doesn't require extraction." What makes Connor significant? He represents the complications Gen Z faces that previous generations didn't. Millennials had the closet, oppressive but at least clear in its expectations. Gen Z has something trickier. The assumption that if you're queer, you should be publicly, performatively queer, or you're doing it wrong. Connor being forced out at 18, then spending his early 20s setting boundaries about what he'll share, is teaching his generation that visibility and privacy can coexist. The Heartstopper impact is real. The show made queer teen love look tender, not tragic. And Connor's real-life experience, the forced outing, the boundary setting, the refusing to perform queerness on demand, adds a layer of meta-commentary. Young viewers watch Nick Nelson figure out his bisexuality on screen while watching Kit Connor navigate being a young bi man in public. The parallel storylines teach that representation is complex, that being out doesn't mean being available for interrogation. 2 years after his forced outing, Connor posts about it again. "I'm grateful to be openly bi now. I'm not grateful for how it happened. If you force someone to come out, even if you thought you were doing it for good reasons, you hurt them. Do better." The post gets 2 million likes and starts a wider conversation about how LGBTQ plus communities police their own. What Kit Connor changed. He made Gen Z confront that progressive harassment is still harassment. That you can support queer representation without demanding queer performers out themselves. That being openly bi at 21 is different than being forced out at 18, and the how matters as much as the what. Connor didn't choose to be the face of this conversation, but he's handling it with more grace than the people who forced him into it deserve, and in doing so, he's teaching his generation that boundaries aren't betrayals. You can be out and still private. You can represent and still protect yourself. And anyone who says otherwise missed the entire point of what representation is supposed to achieve. Safety to be yourself, not obligation to perform for others. Bane, just be. The K-pop idol, who did what they said was impossible. At 22, when Bane came out during that October 2025, live at 22, K-pop industry veterans collectively gasped, not just because an active idol came out, but because he was so young. K-pop operates on a specific timeline. Train as a teenager, debut in your late teens or early 20s, build your career through your 20s, then maybe, Live authentically in your 30s after your peak earning years are over. Bane shattered that timeline. He came out at 22, 3 years into his career, during what should be his prime earning years, the calculation K-pop expected. Bane would hide for another decade, make his money, then come out when commercial viability didn't matter anymore. The calculation Bane made. Hiding was costing him more than honesty would. At 22, he looked at the next decade of pretending and thought, I can't do this for 10 more years. So he didn't. He came out on a random Tuesday in October to 300,000 people watching live and changed K-pop's entire generational timeline. What makes this specifically Gen Z? Previous K-pop idols who'd come out, very few, all after leaving the industry, waited until their 30s or 40s. They'd done the math. Career first, authenticity later. Bane at 22 did different math. He valued immediate honesty over long-term financial security. He chose being himself now over being rich later. It's the most Gen Z calculation possible. Authenticity over security, mental health over money, living now over waiting for permission. The K-pop industry's response revealed their generational disconnect. Company executives saw Bane's decision as impulsive, short-sighted, sacrificing long-term success for immediate relief. But Gen Z fans saw it as brave, necessary, choosing life over performance. The disconnect isn't about facts. Both perspectives are true. It's about values. What matters more? Earning potential or mental health? Career longevity or immediate authenticity? Older generations often choose the first. Gen Z increasingly chooses the second. 3 months after Bane's coming out, a Korean LGBTQ+ youth counselor tells Korea Herald, "We saw a 40% increase in young people reaching out for support, specifically mentioning Bane. But the messages weren't, 'I'm scared to come out.' They were, 'If he can do it at 22, I don't have to wait.'" Bane changed the timeline. Young people aren't asking when it's safe anymore. They're asking why they should have to wait at all. But there's cost. Bane's earnings dropped significantly. Brand deals evaporated. His group's Chinese market access disappeared. At 22, he lost financial security that would have sustained him for life. The question becomes, was it worth it? Bane's answer in interviews is consistent. "I couldn't afford another decade of hiding. Not financially couldn't afford, mentally couldn't afford. The cost of staying closeted was higher than the cost of coming out." That's the calculation older people don't understand. They think money is the highest price. For Gen Z, authenticity is. What Bane changed. The timeline for when K-pop idols can be themselves. He proved that wait until you're established isn't the only option. You can come out at 22, face the consequences, and still survive. Maybe not thrive financially, maybe not keep all your opportunities, but survive. And sometimes surviving honestly is better than thriving while pretending. Previous generations sacrificed their 20s to secure their futures. Bane sacrificed his future earning potential to actually live his 20s. Time will tell which calculation was right. But for Gen Z watching, Bane's choice feels like the obvious one. What's money worth if you're miserable earning it? NCUTI Gatwa, the first queer doctor who came out at 31 but represents Gen Z's future. Nkuti Gatwa is technically a millennial at 31, but he's Gen Z's representative in spaces that haven't traditionally made room for young queer people. When he was cast as the 15th Doctor in Doctor Who, the first black doctor, the first openly queer doctor at 29, he represented something specific: Gen Z's refusal to wait their turn. Previous actors might have stayed quiet about sexuality during casting, come out after establishing the character. Gatwa came out at Comic-Con 2025, months before his first episode aired, making his queerness part of the Doctor's identity from day one. What makes this Gen Z energy despite his age? Gatwa could have played it safe, could have waited until his Doctor was established, beloved, secure, then come out when backlash couldn't threaten his job. That's the millennial playbook. Establish yourself, then be yourself. Gatwa did the opposite. He came out before viewers even saw him as the Doctor. betting that honesty up front was better than strategic revelation later. That's Gen Z's playbook. Be yourself immediately and let people adjust. The response from BBC and Disney Plus, co-producing, was reportedly panicked behind the scenes. Would conservative markets reject an openly queer doctor? Would parents not let kids watch? Would the backlash overwhelm the show? But here's what happened. Engagement increased. Pre-orders spiked. LGBTQ plus media provided free publicity. The business case for supporting Gatwa got stronger because his honesty generated buzz that marketing budgets can't buy. Gen Z consumers rewarded authenticity with attention, and attention converts to money. But Gatwa's real impact. He's normalizing young queer people in spaces that traditionally age them out. The doctor regenerates into different bodies, but those bodies had always been straight, or at least straight-presenting, and typically middle-aged white men. Gatwa, being a queer black Scottish Rwandan man in his early 30s, shifts what the doctor can look like. And for Gen Z viewers, many discovering Doctor Who for the first time through Gatwa, this doctor has always been queer. They're not adjusting to change. This is just what the doctor is now. The generational impact is visible in how young LGBTQ plus people discuss the show. On TikTok, teenage viewers create content about Gatwa's doctor with the assumption that, of course, the doctor is queer. Why would they be anything else? That assumed queerness, not revealed queerness, not special episode queerness, just default queerness, is what Gen Z expects from representation. They don't want very special episodes about being gay. They want gay characters existing normally in stories that aren't about their gayness. What Nkuti Gatwa represents, Gen Z's infiltration into spaces that weren't built for them. Doctor Who is 60 years old, built on assumptions about who gets to be the hero. Gatwa walks into that legacy at 31 and says, "I'm the doctor now and I'm queer, and if you can't handle that, you misunderstood what this show was always about." That energy, young, unapologetic, challenging institutions to catch up rather than waiting for permission, is Gen Z even if Gatwa is technically a millennial. He's showing Gen Z that you don't have to wait until you're 50 and established to live openly. You can demand space at 31, at 25, at 20. And if institutions can't handle it, that's their problem to solve, not yours to accommodate. Cooper Koch, the actor who made openly gay leading man feel possible. At 28, Cooper Koch is 28, which technically makes him a millennial, but his energy reads pure Gen Z, the way he talks about his sexuality like it's one fact among many, not the defining fact. When Monsters, the Lyle and Eric Menendez story, made him unavoidable in 2024, when Calvin Klein plastered his face and body across Times Square in 2025, Koch never hid his sexuality, but he also never made it a thing. His Instagram bio just said actor, not openly gay actor, because why would it? What makes Koch significant for this conversation? He's proof that the Gen Z approach, being out from the start rather than coming out dramatically later, is becoming standard. When interviewers ask about his sexuality, Koch's responses are almost comically casual. "Yeah, I'm gay. What else do you want to know about the role?" His publicist reportedly stressed about this initially, worried that brands would be nervous. But brands, especially those targeting younger consumers, weren't nervous. They were relieved. Finally, an openly gay actor they could market without the coming out narrative dominating everything. The Calvin Klein campaign is particularly telling. Koch in underwear, looking typically Calvin Klein, brooding, muscular, aspirational. But his Instagram shows his boyfriend Mitch casually. The campaign doesn't hide it. Koch doesn't hide it. And sales don't drop, they increase. Because Gen Z consumers don't see gay model as complicated. They see hot model who happens to be gay, and the second part barely registers as relevant to whether they'll buy the underwear. But here's what Koch changes specifically. He makes openly gay leading man feel achievable at 28 rather than 40. Previous generations of actors stayed closeted through their 20s and 30s, built their careers, then came out when they felt established enough. Coke skips that entire calculation. He's out from the jump, booking leading roles, dating publicly, and proving that Gen Z's timeline is different. You don't have to wait until you're safe. You can just be yourself from the start and trust that the right opportunities will find you. 3 months after Coke's Calvin Klein campaign launches, a casting director tells The Hollywood Reporter, "We're seeing more actors list their pronouns and orientations on their headshots now. It's not political. It's practical. They're self-selecting for roles where their identity won't be an issue." Cooper Coke's success showed them that being openly gay from the start doesn't limit you. It just filters out the projects that would have been problems anyway. What Coke represents? Gen Z skipping the closet phase entirely. Not because coming out got easier. It didn't, not everywhere, but because their calculation is different. Millennials asked, "When is it safe to come out?" Gen Z asks, "Why would I go in?" That shift, from coming out as risky reveal to being out as default state, changes Hollywood's entire pipeline. Now casting directors have to adjust to actors who won't hide, won't play straight for comfort, won't wait until they're established to live honestly. Coke didn't fight for that shift. He just embodied it. And the industry is catching up because Gen Z actors aren't giving them another option.
5 Gen Z stars, 5 different paths, one shared truth. They didn't wait for safety to be themselves. From Cooper Coke making openly gay leading men feel achievable at 28, to Kit Connor teaching boundaries after forced outing at 18, from Bane sacrificing K-pop millions at 22 for mental health, to Luca Henny's European ease at 21, to Gatwa refusing to wait until established at 31, Gen Z is rewriting the timeline. They don't ask, when is it safe to come out? They ask, why should I have to wait? That shift, from permission-seeking to existence-claiming, changes everything for everyone coming after. How long did you wait? How long should anyone have to? Gen Z's answer, not one more day than you want to. Subscribe if the future matters.